Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of the Blacklist. A great episode, a lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I always think it's fascinating when they make episodes that aren't Blacklist related. Like, it's just like, for example, like the title of this episode, 16 Ounces. I always think it's so interesting because there's at least maybe like one or two per season. That they do these like episodes that are progressing the story forward but don't technically have a blacklister to be going after. I always think that's fascinating. But obviously we're picking up after the previous episode. Obviously we went on a very long break, but now we're back hitting the ground running, I guess you should say. And so Liz, after what happened to her mom, like Park and Wrestler are there, but it's like she's not there. She's gathering up everything. She's making sure Agnes is taken care of, is staying with a friend. She's gathering up everything, and she seemed like she was going to run, and I love that conversation, that line between Denbei and Reddington, where Reddington was like, "Do you think what I did was wrong?" And he's like, "You're asking me a tactical question to an ethical one. No, you weren't wrong. No, it wasn't a mistake, but yes, it was wrong." Is what he was saying. Do you think I made a mistake? But it's like, yes, no, it wasn't a mistake, but yes, it was wrong. So, and because that's the thing, like, Denbei has told Reddington over and over again, tell Liz the truth. Like, even going into this, she will never forgive you if you do this. But it's like, it's not a mistake to do what he did, because whatever Katarina's circumstances are, it would have threatened everything. Because I still believe at the core, no matter what Reddington does, no matter how despicable, how terrible, how much he wants to bury the truth, at the core of it, I truly believe at the end of the day, all he cares about is Liz. Everything is for Liz. It has always been about Liz, and it will always continue to be about Liz for him. And it's like, but I think, from Liz's perspective, and to me, I think that's the interesting and complicated thing about it. Like, it isn't simple. And some people will give Liz a lot of flack, because for a lot of people, it's like, obviously, who see things that way, where it's like everything Reddington does is about you, but you're not willing to see it. But I mean, it's like, understandably so. And I think that's the great thing about Liz, is that she is constantly conflicted. It's never been like, oh, I'm always pro Reddington or I'm always against Reddington. There are so many shades of gray to the relationship. The back and forth, like, she hates him one moment, then she forgives him the next. I mean, to be fair, that just could be, you could also chalk it up to him being the charismatic villain that he is. But also, it's like, just because of what the relationship is, it's like, well, at one point in time, you think he's your dad, but even then, it's like, what he's ingratiated in your life, he helped forge you into the person you've become. So, yes, it's always going to be like the child a child outgrowing their parent. That's kind of what I think Reddington's kind of hoping for, to a certain extent anyway, that, like, not only will she, be bigger and better than him, but, like, I mean, it's still 100% unclear what he does want for Liz. Does he want her to take over the quote-unquote family business, even though they're technically not family, but they are? But it's like, because at one point in time, she believed that was her dad, so it changed the dynamic of the relationship. And now it's like, I know it's not the truth. I found my mother again, so... Because to me, it's always been a balancing act between the good that Reddington has brought to our life, because despite everything, there has been good that's come into our life because Reddington's been in our life, but there has been a crap ton of bad too, and it always comes down to the moments when the bad outweighs the good. And this is one of those moments of, she lost Sam, she lost Mr. Kaplan, she lost Tom, and now she's lost her mom. Her mom is the most pivotal thing, because she's going her entire life wanting, her mom, because her mom had answers about, like, why would you go into my entire life? Now I realize you being on a run, leaving me behind, that was never your choice. You were forced in this situation, especially with the narrative being Reddington's the reason why you were forced in this situation. So it adds this extra layer of complexity to an already extremely complicated situation. And I think that's the most beautiful, like, human element to this whole thing, that's just me. But like I said, I've heard from some people that they just aren't too much of a fan of where Elizabeth being so against Red. The moment she chose Katarina's side, I know some people were like, no, how dare she pick Katarina over Reddington? I'm one of those people. I'm always going to be Team Reddington, but I also see things from Liz's perspective of just kind of like, he's done too much. He's gotten away with too much. And that's what really surprised me when she was like, okay, rather than running, she actually walks into Harold's office. And it's like, okay, so he's like, oh, I'm surprised you're here. And she's like, well, I have the evidence because she heard the recording on her phone from her mom. And it's like, this is the evidence we need to take Reddington down. It's like, wow. Which is ironic considering about, 2 seasons ago, she got him locked up in jail. Granted, that wasn't what she wanted, but it's just, I think it's ironic at the end of the day because it's like, oh, you want to take him down now, but you kind of put him as, I mean, you accidentally got him locked up, but it's like, there's so many complexities to that, you know, and I love that. I guess, you know, I'm sorry, complicated and complexity are going to be like the words of the day. I'm going to end up saying it so much, and it's going to be so annoying because I have that habit of saying the same word over and over again. I do apologize. But, for her, she came to Harold because she's like, I figured you would be the one person that above anything else would kind of do what was right. Because it's like, you heard me, he killed my mom and I want to take him down. She's like, I don't care what the ramifications are. We need to do this. But he's like, we can't. And she's like, because for her, immediately it's probably like, well, you're just protecting the team or continue to protect them again. But for Harold, it's like, no, I'm not protecting him at the end of, well, I am protecting him because by protecting him, I'm protecting you. Because you might not care about what happens to you at the end of the day, but I do, because if we take Reddington down, you go down as well. Because you kidnapped your grandfather. That's a whole list of, that's a felony in its own right. That in itself will destroy your life, destroy your career, destroy your relationship with your daughter, because you're going to lose time away from her and you'll never be able to completely get that back. But he also kind of put it as like, well, let's not forget who Katarina was. She was a KGB agent. So it's like, I think he's trying to spin it as like, even if we brought this up, people will be like, Reddington killed a KGB agent who has done a lot of shit. So it's like, is it really that bad? You know, a bad guy took out another bad guy. That's how it's going to be looked at. It's not going to be looked at as like, yes, she's a mother, but more so than anything, when you look at her long history of what she was done, what she's also accused of, just because of, you know, the archive and everything, I'm sure that adds levels to the everything being stacked against her, so it paints her probably in even worse light. So Reddington would come out looking like the good guy. But I also love that line from Cooper being like, you may not like my silence, but you will benefit from it. I was like, ooh, I love that line. That's so good, because it's like, you may not like the fact that I'm saying silent because you think it's me against you, but me being quiet, it's actually protecting you in the long run. You benefit from me being quiet. You know, it's a complicated situation. There we go again. Sorry. But Liz kind of walking away from her job. And he was like, I'd hope, you know, even if this is the last day, he's like, if you want to walk away from this, then go, you know, try to live some life. And, you know, but for him, it's like, I was hoping that at the very end of this all, you would call me Harold, because she just kept referring to him as sir. And so it's like, kind of, but at the very end, she does call him Harold, you know? Because the only person he has that relationship, that rapport with, like the whole Harold thing is Reddington. Interestingly enough, because obviously no one else refers to him as Harold, so I just think that's kind of an interesting little detail to kind of keep in mind. Obviously she sees Aram and it's like, oh, I think, any luck finding her? And he's like, yeah, I'm checking this. And he's like, Agent Keenan? She's like, yeah, my money's on you finding me, you know. And I was like, oh, she's like saying her goodbyes and everything. The moment she spilled the coffee, though, I was like, oh, you're about to use him for something. And she ends up getting a form and signed it out, obviously using Aram's name, and ends up signing out something. At first, I'm like, is it a wiretap? But it turns out it's an explosive. At the same time, Reddington's having a conversation with Marvin and Skip. I should really quickly interject. I do apologize. I should have brought this up earlier. I'm actually surprised they actually killed Katarina. Just where he shot her, I would have expected like a headshot this time, because it's like, well, you saw her fake death and everything. So it's like, we gotta make it, well, he's got the body, but I'm like, I'm still kind of unsure about that. I don't know. It just, I mean, I would have expected, maybe filming scheduling conflicts made it impossible for them to do this, but I'm like, I would have expected them to show her, like, in fact, they didn't show her face, they just showed her shoes and stuff like that. Maybe it's just like, well, bringing her in just for that, you know. But I don't know. It rubs me the wrong way. Just that he shot her, I don't know if that seemed like a death thing, especially because he took the body and everything too. I feel like there's got to be more to that. I don't think she's actually dead. I think he's actually got her hidden somewhere, and I think he wrapped up the body because he wants to dispose of a fake body. So if it ever comes up like, oh, what about Katarina? It's like, because he took the body too, but I guess it's also like he doesn't want that to be brought into evidence. But like I immediately, like at the end of episode 2, I took it as him taking the body was because he didn't want, he knows she's still alive. I don't know. It just, this episode makes it seem like, oh, she's definitely dead. I'm still got it in my gut. Like, I don't think she's dead. I think he's got her somewhere and he's faking her death, you know? Because I think even at the end of the day, I don't think he could fully commit to killing her either. I mean, I guess technically he did. Granted, she's not actually dead, but to the world, Katarina, well, at least to the people that are in the know, the task force, and Liz, to them, from their perspective, she's dead. So, to a certain extent, he did kill her. If she's still alive. I mean, if she's really, really dead this time, then that's a whole thing in itself. But circling back to it, Marvin and Reddington talking about Dom's property. Obviously, they won't be able to get much from it. I mean, to be fair, it's in Liz's name now, so it's like, it's not up to him what happens to it. Skip is like, I bulldoze it. And then, Marvin being like, excuse me, think before you speak, Skip, because this place has emotional value. And it's just like, oh, he put up all these like McMansions and stuff like that. And I love Marvin being like, stop while you're behind. And at the end of the day, it's like, Liz, he's like, Marvin's like, despite everything, she literally worked with Katarina against you. She basically helped kidnap Dom. And at the end of the day, you're still going to leave everything to her, because for him, it's like, Dom hated me for years. He was like, there was actually way more bad days than there were good days, but we found common ground. And he thinks no matter how long it takes, yeah, Liz hates me today, maybe tomorrow, but at the end of the day, like, maybe we'll find a way back to each other, like, him and Dom did. So I think, which is kind of interesting, considering the circumstances for, I think Reddington can be a very, he's optimist. I think the romanticism of just that story in itself would be like, oh, like, despite the tragedies that have come up between us, that me and Liz found our way back to it. Like, he's a romantic at heart in that regard of like, the daughter I never have that has been my daughter for a while, so I think the romanticism of that would be what, he's kind of betting on and hoping on, and that familial ties and that growth, which obviously ironic considering you killed her only technical remaining familial tie by killing her mom. And that's the whole thing, Regardless, Liz is setting up her whole situation. Like I said, I initially thought it was like a wiretap to get him to confess to everything, but then it turns out it was her setting up a bomb, which Wrestler saw her doing it, but thought it was like, because he was like, oh, something wrong with you? She's like, yeah, something wrong with my door. I just had to check it. So for him, it's like, I get it. Reddington killed your mom. So he's like, I don't think you should come back. But also I agree with Cooper about not taking down Reddington because it would mean taking you down with him. So, and for Liz, she was dead set on, she's no longer in this to get any answers, because she knows it's like, what's the point of having a conversation with you? Because even Cooper was like, talk to him, find out why he did it. But for her, she's so angry. She's so pissed right now. I mean, once again, happens time and time again. What happened when Tom died? She went full like, I need answers. I need to find out the truth. I need to get him out of the way so that I can find out the truth for myself. It's kind of that, but instead of looking for the truth, it's like, there's no point. The last person in the world who could have given me answers, because Dembe's never going to give me answers, was my mom. She would be the only person. Which is ironic, because obviously she lied to you, because even Liz is like, the only person that ever is honest with her is Reddington. And so, I mean, it's not Reddington, sorry, Cooper. Like, Harold's the only person to ever be 100% honest with her. And she appreciates that. Like, he's the only one that will ever tell her like how it is. He comes from a place of love, because she's like a pseudo daughter to him as well. But it's like, he can be blunt sometimes too with like how he feels and how it is. And, Liz needs to hear that sometimes, whether she wants to hear it and whether she'll kind of ignore it sometimes. It's still, the fact is that he's willing to be blunt and tell her like it is, But, before she even got a chance to blow Reddington up, it's like, nope, he's sick, gets dragged off. So, you could almost make an argument that was fate intervening. But Marvin's like, despite how you feel about him, he does love you. He's willing to leave you everything. And she's like, I don't want anything from him. And I think, once again, that speaks volumes. That he's willing to leave you everything. You betrayed him. You worked with that woman. That woman was my mother. But still, it's like, no, you worked with that woman against him. And he's still willing to leave you the keys to the kingdom. You know, that speaks volumes about what's more important to Reddington. So now Liz is working with Essie because it's like, hey, I know Reddington turned you against me, but eventually he's going to kill you because he's killed everyone that's near him. I mean, once again, you always have to circle back. He killed, he was at least tried to kill Kate. I mean, granted, Mr. Kaplan, she killed herself, but still, he tried to go for the headshot. So that's why I'm like, you can't really. That's why I'm like thinking, that's why that strikes me even more. It's like, yeah, you tried to go for the headshot with Kate. She managed to come back and strike with a vengeance. So that's why I'm like, why wouldn't you do that with someone like Katarina? I mean, I guess because you were like, I'm making sure of disposing the body because he made the mistake of leaving Kate where she was. So, but it's like, if he's willing to do that to the person that's been his confidant, his right hand, his cleaner for years, his secret keeper, like, you would think he would have handled that Katarina situation a little differently, but regardless. But the point I was also making was like, if he's willing to kill his closest confidant and kill a cleaner, like everyone else is kind of like, there's a good chance you're going to die. But I mean, despite everything, Reddington has loyalty to a lot of people around him. Granted, it's like, well, whether you know, it's that age or was it Henry VIII? Is it better to be feared or to be loved? And for a lot of people, it's like, oh, they fear Reddington, but it's also like, so a lot of people, it's also like, well, we benefit from him too. So he's a scary dude. But some people look at it. It is interesting the relationship Reddington has with a lot of people. It's like, do people generally like, hey, because some people have a general love for Reddington, like, hey, Reddington, and other people, oh, Mr. Reddington, you know, so it's a different response. So it's always interesting to see what the dynamic is with people. But obviously for Essie, it's like, well, he's going to kill me anyway, so I'm going to help you take him down. It's like, well, we know he's at the hospital. All right. Liz enacts her plan, which involves calling in the marshals. The marshals like, oh, we know there's a criminal here. Raymond Reddington's like, oh. It's interesting because it never crossed their minds. I guess they assumed it's like, we're at a public hospital. Somebody at the hospital must have known who Reddington was and talked. Because they never immediately jumped to like Liz being the one responsible for that. But obviously, there's a lot of moving pieces because Harold's trying to get on the phone with the Department of Justice, being like, all right, we need to figure this out, stop the marshals from taking Reddington. At the same time, Essie's in like, yo, Liz is trying to kill Reddington. Like, Essie, stay here with him. Denbei, the crew, they're searching the building, trying to find Liz. It's not till it's too late when they realize, wait, she's never been in the building. This whole thing was a distraction. This whole thing was a ploy. Essie planning the explosive, and I'm like, okay. And even Reddington halfway waking up, she's like, shh, it's a dream, it's okay, don't worry about it. And obviously, the doctors come in, and so does Wrestler, because they're all on high alert because of Liz as well. And so, when the time came, though, the explosive there, and I'm like, is Liz actually going to pull the trigger while Wrestler's in there? And it's like, yes, she is, because it's like, as Cooper explains it later, she knows the protocol, so she figured there'd be no one else in that room. And then he's like, I'm sure when they check the explosive radius, it's going to be enough just to go to Reddington's room. But also, it's like, you never know, there could be accidents, like something could, you can't, because that's life, you can't predict everything. But I guess she figured, you know, the FBI and everyone has their procedures, so it's like, yeah, but she wasn't counting on Wrestler being in a room. And it's like, not only did you attempt to kill Reddington the second time, this is also, you almost killed Wrestler too. And the way Aram was on the phone being like, he's not as in bad condition as Aram was making it. That's why I was immediately thinking it turns out to be the case. He was trying to make her feel guilty about it, because it's like, because he's like, now you've made me a co-conspirator because my name is on the form for you when you signed out those explosives. So now it's like, yeah, you put that on me too. It's like, the next time we see each other, it's going to be when you get arrested, you know? So it's like, ugh. So, once again, you thought Liz had burned bridges before. She's burned them like never before, you know? So, I mean, and, you know, it's a complicated thing that Aram, it's like, does that make it okay that she wasn't planning on hurting him? He's like, no, it doesn't make it okay, but he's just trying to explain, like, that Liz was calculated, like, who would be in the room and stuff like that. She wasn't expecting Wrestler to be in the room, but it's like, I mean, that's revenge. That's the whole thing about revenge. It's like, they always say, dig two graves. One for the person you're trying to kill and one for yourself. In this case, it's like dig a grave for everyone else around you that you care about, that because those people will end up being casualties in your war against Reddington. So for Liz, it's just the only person on her side right now is Essie, and so she even calls out Reddington. I love, he's like, admit it. When you thought I was gone, you realized how dull your life would be without me. You know, I was like, I love that you're even in a position to joke like that, considering she just tried to kill you. Granted, this is the second time because you didn't realize she was trying to kill you the first time, but it's still, damn, dude, like having your own daughter try and kill you is on another level, you know? Liz makes her declaration of war. It's like, you are at a disadvantage in this situation. Yeah, you might have all the resources, you might have all the assets, but at the end of the day, I'm willing to go farther than you're able to. I am willing to kill you. You can never and never will kill me. And he's like, the fact is, and even Reddington saying that line of, this is a waste of a life, but for her, it's like, this is my life to do what she wants with it. And that's the thing, that even at the end of this, it's not coming from a place of, oh my God, you're trying to kill me. It's like, it's more so like, you're wasting your life, like the life that you have so much potential, and you're wasting this life away doing this, because I think it's like you're fighting for something you shouldn't be fighting for. You know, it's like, I get it was your mom, but there's so much here that you don't understand. It's like, well, I don't understand because you're not telling me a damn thing, you know? So, and at the end of the day, that Marshall dagger to the heart to Cooper, where it's kind of like, all right, I get it. He's like, no offense, but you're protecting a criminal, and just, I wouldn't be able to live with myself, because it's like, yeah, you do some good, but it also means, because you're working with a criminal, means you have to overlook certain things, bend the rules, not dot some I's, not crossing some T's. And that's always been the conflict that, Harold believes that the work they do outweighs the bad, outweighs the benefits of, like, it's like, we lock up some very bad people. Granted, Reddington gets more powerful and continues to do terrible stuff as well. As Liz made it clear, it's like, let's not forget how many bodies Kate unearthed. 86. Because that had to be everyone Reddington had killed over those 30-ish years. I mean, granted, he had disposed of other bodies in different manners, but at least I'm assuming that's a majority. Might not have been all, but I'm sure it was a majority. But, I mean, who knows? Maybe that wasn't even a majority. Might not even been half, for all we know. That was a shit ton of bodies, which is also ironic, because, like, you wanted to take him down, and, like, there was evidence then, because obviously Wrestler's pal was investigating the whole Reddington situation when Kate was trying to take him down and everything. So it's like, it's been so many attempts of people trying to take him down, yet you guys are kind of been there to protect him and kind of shield him. And now Liz is like, no more on that front. But it's so interesting at the end of the day that, and it's kind of not necessarily coming full circle, but Liz is on the run again. But this time it's different, because last time she had Reddington and his entire criminal network at her disposal, all his friends, all his assets. She had that. Now she has that network and the FBI against her, and it's like, only person she has is Essie. But for her, it's like, you've prepared me for this. Whether you knew it would come down to this or not, you've prepared me to think like a criminal, and I've crossed that line many times before, but now I've crossed it on a different level. So it's like, she knows some of his tactics. She knows the handbook. She's been around him enough to study him to say, you prepared me to be this, so I'm ready for you. I know how you're going to think. I know how you're going to operate. So I'm ready for this, So I think that gives her a bit of an advantage. And once again, I can pull the trigger. You will never pull the trigger when it comes to me. Granted, well, I was about to say Katarina kind of halfway expecting him not to pull the trigger because of you, but it's like, I don't know. Because at the end of the day, he's not going to kill Liz. That is true. He is going to try and save her, though. Because obviously, like, she's meeting with Wrestler, and he's like, I'm going to come after you. She's like, I know, but at least for one night, can I get a rest before I have to start running again, Because for her, it's like she was devastated learning that she would have killed Wrestler. Learning that she would have hurt anyone on that team, whether it was Park, whether it was Aram, whether it was Cooper, she would have felt terrible. Especially Wrestler though, like after everything they've been through, especially because there has been something building between them, and now that makes things between them even more complicated. I had to squeeze in one more. Who knows if that's even going to be the last one in the recording. But you also have Cooper sitting down with Reddington and it's like, well, why did you do it? And Reddington's even saying, like, after all these years, I can't even fully tell you why I did it. I had, it's like, because it's probably like, was it for this reason? Was it for that reason? Because he was also reserved on not pulling the trigger as well because of just everything between him and Katarina. And so at the end of the day, it's like, we have to stop her. It's like, Reddington's like, he's afraid, the worst possible thing. You and me combined, we've seen so many tragedies in our lives. The worst tragedy would be Liz doing something she can't come back from. Yeah, she's crossed the line, which you'd almost think, you crossed the line that you think there's no coming back from. But it's like, no, there's still enough. Like, eventually she could do too much that there is no repairing her reputation. And, her coming after Reddington is one thing, but I think what they're referring to is like, if whoever she's going to try to get through to get to Reddington, I mean, we don't fully know what that terrible tragedy, that terrible thing is that she could do that would be unforgivable. But it's like, we have to prevent that tragedy. And it's like, Cooper's like, oh, I agree. So how do we do that? It's like, the only thing we can, put her at the top of the blacklist. It's like, ooh, I like that. I think someone had suggested that at one point in time, didn't they? I think I remember hearing someone hit me up and suggested that as a thing of like, eventually she be at the top of the blacklist. I vaguely feel like I remember hearing someone say that. I don't know. As this whole conversation about inevitability and stuff like that comes up, it does make you wonder, was this, I don't know. It's just a fascinating situation. I am very, very excited to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode as a team. Because obviously we've seen the team against Liz before. Like, obviously when she was on the run, a good chunk of season 3. So we've already seen that before, but this is going to be on another level because it's going to be that thing of, hey, we're working against Liz, feeling the way we do, but also we're working with Reddington against her. So, but granted, he's not trying to kill her. And I think that's going to be the difference of like, he's trying to bring her in and take her down in that regard. But, we'll see how successful that is. This is, like I said, fascinating situation. But I'm really, really interested to see where the next episode takes us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe. We'd like to know fullest and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.